Welcome to Unleash Your Audacious Confidence on Win-Win Women TV. This show is all about sharing the tips, tools, and techniques that will allow you to step boldly in the direction of your dreams despite your feelings, fears, or past failures, to imagine what's possible for yourself and live the life you deserve. Hello, and welcome to this episode of Unleash Your Audacious Confidence. I'm your host, Alicia Couri, and I am thrilled to be here with you today. We have a great show lined up for you today, but before we get to our guest, which I don't want to take a lot of time to bring her up, I wanted to just invite you to check out winwinwomen.com. We have a lot of great opportunities there for women. So make sure you go there and check it out. We have some local circles that you can join and be a part of. And you can also become a show host here on Win-Win Women TV as well. And I invite you to connect with me, Alicia360.com, where you can connect with me on all social media platforms, but you can also email me or send me a text message from that site. So Alicia360.com. I would love to connect with you and hear from you how you're enjoying the shows. You can also WhatsApp me. So if you're in another country and you can't text, you can WhatsApp me. All right. So on the program today, we have an amazing woman that's going to share about reentry, successful reentry, building confidence after incarceration, how you can enter society as a productive member of society. So I would love to welcome to the show Sue Kastensen. I think I got it right this time.
Hi. You did. Sue. That was perfect. Thanks, Alicia. It's great to be here.
Welcome. Oh, I'm so thrilled to have this conversation with you because this is an area I don't think people think a lot about. When people are incarcerated, when they're being released, how they cannot just successfully go through that process so that they don't return to criminal activity and back in jail or back in prison, but also how do they build their confidence to even feel like they're worthy of a second chance. And I know I'm throwing a lot of stuff out there, but I'm hoping that we touch on some of these topics. But also on top of that, the families, how do they reintegrate with, if they have families, the neighborhoods, and successfully integrate into those areas of life. So I thank you so much for joining me for this conversation.
And thank you for inviting me. And those are all absolutely on point, important aspects of reentry and even life while incarcerated. So thanks.
Yeah. So we did a little preview show over on YouTube earlier, and we talked a little bit about your background. You kind of touched a little bit on your own experience with the system, and we said that we were going to come back and talk a little bit more about that. So I want to start from the beginning of this. So how did you become so passionate about helping incarcerated individuals on a whole?
I was introduced to the idea, and when I ran a small manufacturing facility here in my little town of 2000 in western Wisconsin, I was making lip balm and body care products, and one of my employees asked me if I would consider hiring her friend who would be coming home from prison soon. And in a little town, when you think about avoiding something, you know that it's going to go somewhere else in your little town. So I had to face the fact that if I could not do this, how could I expect anyone else to, or what would I be, even an opportunity that I would be missing out on. So I, of course, jumped at the opportunity, but warned my applicant that I wasn't sure if there were things that I couldn't ask in the job interview, et cetera, et cetera. In that process, when we were talking I learned so much about the challenges of being incarcerated for him in a different state and preparing to come back to this state with no tools. And
Mhm.
I thought, oh my gosh, this is, this was 2000. And so I thought, we've got the internet. Everybody can put in their little zip code and find whatever they want. Why don't we have this for formerly incarcerated people? So that was the beginning. And,
Mm.
I'm just one of those folks that when they get their little claws into something, they just go. And so, had the spreadsheet with every state and large cities and the national options and built from that spreadsheet.
So you started like a little resource bank for yourself. You're like, we need to have some more resources for these folks.
That's
Hmm.
exactly right. Yes. And it didn't take long before I knew that my passion was no longer competing with, the big body care companies and it hit my heart to work with people. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, that was the launch. But in doing this, creating the organization, working with the individuals, hearing their stories, doing my own research, I was faced with my own past, which was 5 years in the system as a child. My moniker was an uncontrollable child, and
You
so
were
I.
labeled, you were labeled as a
That's
child.
right. That's
Hmm.
right. And basically left home at 13 and never went to live at home again, but was released. I had no out date, but I, finally got to choose for myself when I turned 18. Nowadays, children in that situation will often get some financial support
Hmm.
or educational support in leaving the system. This was in 1981, and there really wasn't much there for us then. So,
Yeah. So
yeah,
you
so
were in the system from 13 until 18 as
correct.
a juvenile. And that that created its own challenges for you coming out because you had to make your own way. I asked the question when we were just live before this, how did you have the confidence to start your own business from coming from, the juvenile system and having nobody?
Yeah, and you know, adding the so we talked about confidence, but even starting a business, that is another level in a way because, like I said earlier, I had to learn to advocate for myself in the world.
Hmm.
But then even to start a business, I think because like I said earlier, I'm a meddler, and I feel like I want to solve problems, whether other people see them as existing or not. Um, I wanted to get my products out into the world. I was living in the mountains and working as a snowboard instructor and lift operator and snowmaker. And I had this little lip balm I learned how to make in college, and everybody wanted to use it. And I thought, well, maybe I could make a little pocket change selling lip balm. And pretty soon it was just blowing up. And that's how it all of a sudden became, where I needed employees, a business, of that size. So it wasn't like I set out to conquer the lip balm world. That unfolded, and that confidence actually was built by the demand for the product, which was
Right.
awesome. And I hadn't really thought about that until actually right now, and how even in preparing for this, I thought about how people in building that confidence, sometimes we have to fake it to make it. We have to
Yeah.
know that we have the confidence when we're in this circumstance. But right now, I'm talking to an employer and I have no confidence. So I have to try and be that person that, normally has
Be your
confidence.
future self. Be
That's
or
right.
the person, yeah, like you're saying, be the person standing there that would be confident in this position and say, okay, I may not have it, but this is how that person is going to operate. So let me just operate like that for a minute. So you have to act, you have to
Exactly.
do a little bit of acting
That's
in
right.
that situation to get yourself started.
That's
Oh,
right.
wow. That's
Yeah,
fascinating that, you know, you kind of bet on yourself. You're like, okay, people want this, so I'm gonna do this.
that's exactly.
And see. So that's awesome.
Yeah.
I want to specifically focus on women because as someone who is in the system yourself, you're a woman, coming out, was there a lot of judgment? Was there a lot of you know, people not wanting to give you an opportunity because you were a product of the juvenile system? Or were you like, I don't care about that. I'm an adult now. I'm moving forward.
So that was what was in my mind for sure. And I think because of my age, I didn't carry stigma like I might have if all of that happened to me when I was 40. Then
Right.
it may have weighed on me in a different way. Plus, uh, my other juvenile friends and I were always of the attitude that, you know, if we're, going to be in this position now, let's get everything out of our system now so that when we're over 18, it won't be following us. So we truly felt like things weren't going to follow us like
Yeah.
they will and do for our incarcerated adults, which
Yeah.
actually has gotten much worse through the years because many of the records are open to the public in a lot of our states.
Yeah. All right. So let's dive into that then. So since we're segueing into to um those who are incarcerated, how do they find opportunities when they know they're going to be released? What is some of the first things that they should do, especially women, because the female population of incarcerated are much lower than the male. So I'm just guessing, you can correct me if I'm wrong, that there are resources out there for more men than there are for women who have been incarcerated. So share with me what are some of the steps that a woman should think about when, doing when she knows she's going to be released.
Yeah, the incarcerated population for women is about 10% and of the total, and they receive uh, the supports, the training, the pre-release, everything pretty much in direct proportion to
Mm,
that
yeah.
number. So they are really, and in fact, a lot of it's sad in many ways because a lot of the incarcerated women are um, offered employment opportunities. This is changing, but offered employment opportunities or training in uh, things that we used to do, occupations we used to hold, typing, you know, reception,
Oh,
things like that. Whereas sewing, but women want to become welders. Women want to drive large equipment,
IT, right? They want to go into IT. They want to go
and
into, yeah.
exactly. So we are seeing, and so the argument is always, well, there's so few women and we can't justify the cost. We can take this into men's facilities because, there's so
Yeah.
many. And so volunteering is kind of extra crucial for women so that we can reach in and fill those gaps that are there between the women and the men. Once they're released, they can participate in things pretty much equally, and especially when it's things like IT, coding, all those uh, education opportunities, training opportunities are pretty much there for everyone. It's just
Hmm.
while they're incarcerated, and so um, I find it very important to make sure that I'm, you know, open to all. And actually, I guess partly because of the things I've done in my past, I want to make sure that women have the opportunity to see themselves in a variety of positions, not
Yeah.
just, in these specific places we used to
Cooking,
have to be.
cleaning,
Yes, right.
baking, yeah,
Exactly.
sewing. Not that anything's wrong with any of that, but why are we pigeonholing women to those, instead of asking them, what do you have an interest in? What would you
That's
like to learn? But like you said, I understand the argument that funds are limited, and so resources are limited. And so we don't have it to give to a smaller population. And again, women get the short end of the stick on that again. But,
again.
again. What about women? Let's look at this from the other perspective, the perspective of someone whose husband, a woman whose husband is incarcerated or father is incarcerated. What kind of toll does that take on that family unit? And what are some of the things that they need to prepare for themselves with them coming out and rejoining the family unit? Is that something you work on as well?
Absolutely. I try to make sure that I support all stakeholders. There is a group, the victims, that I really leave to them to work on if they whatever want to come to me. I'd love to support that. And in fact, of course, a lot of our incarcerated population are also victims. But I want to make sure that I appeal to several stakeholders, including those employers that are going to hire formerly incarcerated people and the families who are supporting the incarcerated people. There are several supports that are free or low cost that could help, like, say, the children of incarcerated people go on to college. There's scholarships. There's free email or mail service. So I want to make sure that not only the families can find information on my website, fairshake.net. There's a whole big page for family members, but I also want to make sure that they can help that person coming home. So I want to make sure they have access to all the tools that I've created to gather information that they can then share with their incarcerated loved one. And conversely, I have a newsletter that goes out to 3,000 people that are all only incarcerated. And so they can share information from the newsletter with their family members. And then they can go and check out links or information that I share and dig for more information if it applies. They certainly serve their own type of sentence during the duration of their loved one's sentence.
Like military families too. I mean, the correlation of that someone is gone.
That's right.
Like someone is gone and you have to take care of everything, the women, the parent, and where this is a win-win women. So we're talking about women. So if the woman is at home having to hold down the fort and take care of the children and everything else, that is a burden on, they're essentially single mothers, taking care of everything in the family. I want to just talk a second about just the condition of women in these situations. We were having a conversation earlier about pregnant women who are incarcerated and having some of the conditions are finally being more humanized. I'm trying to, I'm tiptoeing around it. I'm trying to tiptoe around, but where they're no longer being shackled while pregnant or giving birth. And, like, we really have to bring humanity back, even if they are offenders, they did something wrong. We can't eliminate their humanity because they did something wrong.
That's right.
And depending on the type of crime, right?
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. So it should not matter when you're giving birth. None of that should matter. You're probably not going to run. You're probably not going to become violent. Well, any more violent than you might be normally during giving birth anyway. But
right. So like humanizing some of these situations. So when you come out, because I think that's, in my opinion, that's one of the challenges, is you're stripped of your humanity, you're dehumanized in that situation. So coming out of that situation and trying to find your humanity again which is probably another place where recidivism happens, because you treated me like a dog. You believed I'm worthless. I'm a dog, and I have nothing good to give. So I'm going to come out and I'm going to behave that way again, and they end up right back in there. So it's,
Yeah,
if we have this opportunity to treat people like people and humanize them while they're incarcerated, then they will come out not, feeling like they're worthless and should be treated that way.
that's right. There is a phrase that's often used about preparing people for release, and that is rehabilitation. A lot of folks inside say, I was never rehabilitated in the first place.
How could I be
So
re?
that's right. So that adds to what you're speaking to, right? So when we want people to, behave a certain way in community, well, treating them, like you said, like dogs while they're incarcerated isn't going to like suddenly, reveal the appropriate behavior for after release. There is one great note, well, good, I guess, note relatively, for women in all states, and then federally throughout the Federal Bureau of Prisons. Several states have already acted on this. And this is the Dignity for Incarcerated Women Act. And so that is to make sure that women in throughout the Federal Bureau of Prisons, and then, like I said, already in many states, it's up for discussion in my state. But yeah, so that women will not be shackled, so that they will have better visitation time with their children, and throughout the pregnancy have better care, no solitary, exactly, no extras.
Because
Yeah.
women still have, and as you mentioned, solitary. I have a friend who was in solitary for like almost a year because she had an attitude. She's one of my best friends. She's like, this is many, many years ago, and she was, so yeah, solitary is not fun. But back to pregnant women, incarcerated pregnant women, and you were telling me that they have to give the baby up immediately upon birth. So then that baby is a product of the system now, right?
That's right. Yeah.
And do they have, if they're released, do they have an opportunity to regain their parental rights?
And that is going to be different with every different situation. And that's a very difficult part of all of this. We don't have a strict, protection around that relationship. Some of those children can go to immediate family, which is the best for them. There was an article not long ago in a paper about a gal who had to give her baby up and didn't have any family. And one of the correctional officers in the institution said she would take it. And the prison said, well, then, of course, you won't work here anymore. And she said, that's what I have to do. This is important to me. And now she is receiving a lot of support for creating a place where that can happen for more women in her state, in her area.
Wow.
Sometimes, again, we have to just boldly and confidently say, this is what I have to do. I have to follow this feeling. And you never know what supports might be waiting, just unable to do it themselves. But when we see that correctional officer who said it, that's correct. Yeah.
I mean, I, as a mother, I can't even imagine having to give your child up and possibly never have an opportunity to ever see, like, if that's your choice, like, there are women who give their babies up for adoption, and that's their choice to do that, or the circumstance that they're in, but they still make that decision to do it, versus you not even having that opportunity, like that right has been taken from you because of the situation you're in. They're just taking that baby, whether you want to keep your child or not. And you were saying that in other countries, they do allow for women to have their babies and stay with their babies for up to 3 years. So
yes, that was in Georgia. The country of Georgia had some visitors, and so they have a special like wing in the women's facility where it's only
Pregnant and
pregnant
new moms.
and new moms, and they even offer like family visits overnight. And so women even become pregnant while they're incarcerated and can then
Have those
go home.
conjugal visits.
That's right. And then they will get to spend time in that area. They believe that that is imperative to
Right.
make the
That
bond.
back to our conversation around humanity, that's allowing someone to feel, yes, I'm serving my time. I did something wrong. I'm here for a reason. I'm not here for no reason. I mean, there are people who are there for no reason, but that's a whole different conversation. But
Right.
but if they're there for a reason, and but they should still retain their humanity,
Right.
and be able to have their child and have ability to nurse their babies and do these things. And not everything needs to be stripped. Your freedom is stripped, but not everything needs to be stripped from you. But that's for the politicals to debate and stuff. We just want to make sure that people have the right resources and that they know where to go to get them. I have one final question, and I want you to share resources, how people can find you and get information from you. You mentioned employment, and this whole thing started with you employing someone who was incarcerated. There are labor shortages everywhere. Could you share your experience with hiring an ex-offender, but also not from just from hiring, but the work that you've done for these many decades with ex-offenders, how valuable they are within the workforce?
Yeah. So one thing that employers will find is that formerly incarcerated people have been getting up early for quite some time. They often have pretty darn good discipline around, waiting until the bell rings for lunch, et cetera, right? So they're good on the schedule. They also are used to being very accountable. And in fact, if you hire someone who's on parole, they're even more diligent about that accountability because it's an additional person who's going to be in that accounting. I also find that people who get on their first job after incarceration, they are eager to create that resume to move forward. So even if they're only going to work with me for a certain amount of time, they want to have some nice comments. So they're going to be more concerned about getting along with people,
Diligent
asking.
in their work. Mm-hmm.
That's right. Making sure the job is done correctly. They want to make sure. So back to the confidence piece, they were often confident with the position that they were in the institution. They'd been there for a while. They'd established themselves, but now they come out and they are floating. They don't really they're not in the hierarchy at all. And if they think about it, they're at the bottom in their mind. And so they want to make sure they're staying in the lane as they work their way back. During COVID, many employers contacted me and said, we want to tap into this resource. And I actually, in my, addressing stakeholders, I have a whole page for employers to help them feel more confident themselves in knowing how to interview or how, what their parameters
what questions
are,
to ask. Like when you're like, what can I ask? What can I ask?
That's right. Exactly. So I want to make sure that everyone knows this, and even the incarcerated people, as they're preparing to leave, I want them to know that Fair Shake offers tools for them to offer employers, like federal bonding or tax credit incentives, so that if they feel like it would be helpful to nudge that employer a little bit or help them see that they have something to gain as well, I want that formerly incarcerated person to have those cards to play also.
That's awesome. That's
Okay.
incredible. We have run out of time, Sue. This has been such a valuable conversation. It's been really eye-opening in a lot of ways. Share how people can reach you and find these resources.
Yeah, so the website is fairshake.net, and it is free of cost and free of tracking. So explore, and no one's going to be asking you, did you have a good experience, or can I help you find something else? And to email me, I'm Sue, S-U-E, at fairshake.net.
Thank you so much, Sue. And thank you all for joining us. We're going to have another conversation about this immediately after the show. But I want to encourage you all out there to check out Sue's website, fairshake.net. Even if you don't know anyone incarcerated yet, you may at some point, and you have now a resource to share with them. So I want you all to go out there and be bold and be brave, and every day do one thing to step out with audacious confidence. And I will see you next time on another episode of Unleash Your Audacious Confidence here on Win Win Women TV. Bye, everybody.